Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain, and today Boruto episode 161 is done and in the books. And I gotta say, I know that this car actuation arc, for some people, they don't really care for the pacing. I personally have been enjoying the pacing for this arc because every episode, literally every episode of this arc, we're getting Easter eggs to stuff that is either coming in the future when they start adapting the manga content, or it's directly answering some questions that people who read the manga closely have been asking. So I like what they're doing with this arc, and I like how they're slowly building up towards the meeting with Car, because when you have that moment where when Konohamaru's sitting there and he's drinking with the butler for Lady Sakuya, Konohamaru, in that moment you can tell he put two and two together, where all of a sudden he's understanding that there's more to Victor than even he and Mujino ever thought. They knew that Victor was a bit shady. They knew he was a bit shady, but now when you find out that Victor was the one looking for the Hashirama Cell, and that it was actually his employee who sold it and sold the Hashirama Cell underneath Victor's nose and sent it to the land of silence. Now the dots should be connecting for Konohamaru that this person that they were actually helping in the past, there's a bit more seediness to him. Again, I think Konohamaru had an idea for it, but now he's in a situation where the tables have been absolutely turned. He gave Boruto a very critical portion of the mission, and Boruto ends up coming in a situation where he ends up getting framed, and because Boruto gets framed, their whole cover gets blown. You can tell the difference in experience between the two of them. Like, number one, you have this scene where Konohamaru realizes that, okay, Boruto's been trapped, I need to buy time. Boruto did the smart thing. He already had a shadow clone ready, and so that shadow clone was the one that got caught. Boruto's able to kind of sneak in there, but when you look at how Konohamaru kept himself composed and immediately realized that the easiest way for him to buy time is to get a drink, he comes up with the lie right there on the spot and says, like, well, I only do surgery after I've had a drink. I can't possibly do this under these circumstances. So I like that moment right there, how Konohamaru buys the time for Boruto to actually do a smash and grab. And so when Boruto gets into the portion of the palace where Lady Sakuya is, Boruto thinks it's going to be super easy, just go in there, get what he needs, and get the hell out of there. And you have this moment where Boruto lets his guard down. When he gets close to her, he lets his guard down because he says, oh, she's asleep. And my thing on this is, again, this is where the experience comes in. Boruto did the right thing. He snuck into the room. He took out the guards. He snuck into the room. He observed from afar. Now, Boruto had two options that he could have done. He could have ran to the far wall behind Lady Sakuya, and then he could have used his chakra control to climb up the wall, climb up the ceiling, and observe things from that angle. Now, the other thing on that is when Boruto gets in there and he gets by the stairs, he looks and he says she's asleep. Now, if she's dead, and it seems like she's been dead for a while because of that poison, first thing he should notice is that she's not breathing. So that was a small detail that got overlooked there. So again, it's small things. Like when it comes to shinobi, the thing that they definitely hammer home, you saw this in part 2 when it came to Sakura's training with Tsunade. Tsunade tells her that a good shinobi learns to find the small details, the smallest details that you overlook. This was something that did get overlooked. And again, Boruto's still a Genin. He's been a Genin for just a little over a year now, so he's still got some stuff that needs to be ironed out. So I like how this episode kind of highlights for you that even though Boruto's a prodigy, you're seeing once again why Sasuke said you need a little bit more experience if I can take you on these missions with me. So I thought that that was cool. Now, I also like how Mujino is directly talking to the audience at one point without actually turning to the camera and talking to him. So he didn't break the fourth wall, but they did some very smart writing here where you had this moment where all of a sudden we're finding out that Lady Sakuya, she purchased the Hashirama Cell because she wanted eternal youth. And that kind of struck me as odd when I heard it. I'm thinking, are they getting ready to do another retcon? Are they going to retcon Hashirama Cells? This makes absolutely no sense. And Mujino, when Sarada says, can Hashirama Cells actually make you young? At that point, I'm like, okay, they're using Sarada to actually be the audience and ask the question for the audience. And then Mujino responds and he says, these people don't even know what Hashirama Cells are for. And so what I like about this is that there's actually an Easter egg to the Naruto franchise where you have this moment where they talk about how they implanted the Hashirama Cell into the young girl that Mitsuki has helped recovering. And the reason why that's so huge is if you go back to the Naruto Shippuden portion of the anime, right? And even in the Naruto manga, it was stated that not everyone who got the Hashirama Cells was compatible with them. That's the whole reason why a Orochimaru did all these test subjects after subjects, trying to find bodies that were compatible with the Hashirama Cell. So I thought that that was cool right there. And you also see how when the butler gets the Hashirama cells, his body was not compatible with it, which is the whole reason why he needed the antibody. So I thought that that was cool right there. Again, they're doing little small things that kind of reward you if you remember the small details. And in this case, this is actually a huge detail that a lot of people overlook in the series, because it should be worth noting that like not everyone can use these cells. So I like the fact that they're actually kind of using that right there. So I thought that that was interesting. I also like how when they get into the castle, they do a really good job at this point of allowing the castle to take on a personality of its own. So the first thing that you should start seeing is when they approach it, you have this barrier. The barrier, this is really smart writing. The barrier, when you try and sneak into the castle, it automatically drains your life force and you're just stuck there old and shriveled. So you go from eternally young, all of a sudden, or I guess not literally eternally young, but you go from being in the prime of your youth to all of a sudden being old and brittle. Old and brittle, dead. They got to get rid of your body. The lady that is the queen of that castle, she's old. Her youth has long since passed her by. Every day that goes on, she's getting wrinkle after wrinkle after wrinkle, and she wants to find something that's going to take her back to her glory days. So you see the contrast there. And then once you get into the inside of the castle, you have all these mirrors that have been knocked out. So because those mirrors have been shattered, you can't actually look into it, which goes back to the flaws of Lady Sakia's personality, because she doesn't want to be reminded of her mortality. And yet at the tail end of this episode, what happens? She faces her mortality because she ends up getting killed. That is brilliant. That is brilliant. Like when I hear people say they don't like what the anime's doing, the thing that it really hits me is like when you get to the arcs like this, there are so many symbolic things that are slipped into the story arcs that it just makes me sit there and say either they took the time and they planned this out, or this is accidental brilliance. And I like how, again, you get a little bit of foreshadowing there when Mujino says, Konohamaru, make sure you do this correctly. Again, you start seeing that Mujino understands what Konohamaru is capable of, and that's because Naruto sent Konohamaru and Mujino on special missions that only they can accomplish either as a solo or as a two-man team. So I like that right there. I like that little element. And I gotta say, for Deepa's voice actor, I like his voice. I like his voice a lot. I thought that that was interesting. I like how we see a little bit of his personality. He's very impatient. And I think that just in those few brief moments when Victor is talking to him and telling him like, hey, you know, we need to proceed very carefully, Deepa immediately says like, yo, they in the land of silence. Nobody's gonna care if we raise some hell out there, because what you have to remember, and again, I keep stressing, watch the Land of Silence explained video, because one of the things I talk about there is the fact that the Land of Silence is closed off from the five great nations. Their feudal lord does not communicate with the feudal lords that are on Naruto's continent. So I thought that that was interesting right there, that Deepa understands this is an opportunity for him to cut loose, but that also shows his tragic flaws of character. So in that brief moment, we see a few things. Number one, he is arrogant. He's overconfident in his abilities. He's also very short attention span. He has a goldfish's attention span. And then the third thing that we see is that he's impatient, because he leaves before Victor even finishes talking to him, because he sees the opportunity to go in there and raise some hell. So I think that once Boruto and them start coming into contact with him, that those are things that they can use against him. Because at the end of the day, what you're going to end up finding out, and I stand by this, is that Deepa is either going to be a new inner member or he's going to be the weakest inner member. I think that that's going to be interesting if they kind of go that route right there, because one thing that they are making clear is that potentially Kara has not finished upgrading all the various members with cybernetics and potentially with those Hashirama cells. So that's going to be interesting right there to see how they kind of handle that. I also thought how they're doing Mitsuki's antibodies was very well done. Again, more foreshadowing for stuff that's happening in the manga. So my episode question to you guys, I'm gonna keep this one simple. So when it comes to how Boruto handled the situation, are you okay with the way Boruto got framed? Do you think there was anything Boruto could have done in order to prevent himself from falling in that situation, or do you think it was inevitable? Let me know down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching until then. Have an awesome day, guys.